This video is brought to you by Factor. Go to factormeals.com/Murrell50off and use code Murrell50off to get a special offer, and stay tuned after the video for more info. Hello everybody, I'm Dan Murrell here with the latest chapter in the seemingly never-ending saga at Warner Brothers Discovery. Back when I covered the name change of their streaming service from Max to HBO Max, I mentioned that some saw this as a potential prelude to them splitting up the company. Well, that is exactly what's happening, because on Monday, Warner Brothers Discovery announced that they will be splitting into two separate companies currently called Warner Brothers Discovery Streaming and Studios and Warner Brothers Discovery Global Networks, essentially ending the merging of the Warner Brothers and Discovery assets that drove the initial merger between the two companies. David Zaslav will remain the head of the Streaming and Studios company, while Gunnar Wiedenfels, who's currently the chief financial officer at Warner Brothers Discovery, will run the Global Networks company. WB Discovery says that they anticipate this process being done by mid-2026, pending approval of a plan by the IRS that allows them to complete this whole process tax-free, although they might want to talk to Paramount about what it feels like to be waiting on the government to approve your plans. In the announcement, Zaslav said, quote, "By operating as two distinct and optimized companies in the future, we are empowering these iconic brands with the sharper focus and strategic flexibility they need to compete most effectively in today's evolving media landscape. Included in the Streaming and Studios company are HBO Max, the HBO cable channel, Warner Brothers Pictures and Animation, New Line Cinema, DC Studios and DC Comics, the Warner Brothers Television Group, which is the production arm of television, Warner Brothers Games, the studio facilities in Burbank in England, and all products, licensing, and attractions. Included in the Global Networks company are cable channels TNT, TBS, Turner Classic Movies, OWN, HGTV, Food Network, TLC, Discovery Channel, Animal Planet, Cartoon Network and Adult Swim, CNN and CNN International, the Discovery Plus streaming service, which was recently unmerged from HBO Max, and it's TBD about whether the programming will stay on HBO Max, the Bleacher Report brand, and TNT Sports, which has the rights to some broadcasts of Major League Baseball, March Madness, hockey, NASCAR, Big 12 football, and more. Now, Warner Brothers Discovery is not the only conglomerate to do this. Comcast announced last year that they are spinning off their cable channels, including E! and USA and Sci-Fi, to a company called Versant. And I think what this largely is that unless you're Disney, the idea of a company that is a multimedia conglomerate that controls movies and streaming and linear cable channels just isn't feasible in this media environment. Despite largely undoing a lot of the WB Discovery merger, this isn't just a return to a few years ago for Warner Brothers. This is the first time that the Warner Brothers film studio has been unchained from linear cable networks in decades. I mean, in a way, we are rewinding the clock to before the Time merger back in the 1990s. If you followed the history of Warner Brothers, this is nothing new. As Time Warner, they merged with AOL in 2001, I think the biggest merger ever at that time, which was a disastrous move that resulted in Time Warner becoming its own company again in 2009. In 2018, Time Warner was acquired by AT&T and rebranded as Warner Media, but less than 4 years later, AT&T divested itself of Warner Media so that it could merge with Discovery to form Warner Brothers Discovery. And now, a little more than 3 years after that merger, the companies will now split into two entities. So how did we get to this point? Well, there's no denying that this is far from the stated goals and dreams of David Zaslav, who, as then Discovery CEO in 2021, had this to say on CNN, where he was excited about the idea of a one-stop shop for all, as he loves to say, content that could help him win the streaming wars.
More does make a difference, and people now are signing up for Discovery Plus, and we think if you can take our content together with the great content on HBO Max, as well as the amazing production coming out of Warner Brothers, that we'll have something that's truly unique. We'll be the #1 global IP company in the world in terms of content and quality of IP. We're positioned to get 200 million homes, 300 million homes, and because we have all the content that people love. And so I think coming together, we're not just better together, I think we're the best media company in the world together.
But things didn't quite work out that way. First of all, the merging of Discovery Plus and HBO Max did not turn it into the all-inclusive, popular, again, one-stop shop that David Zaslav wanted. While the streaming division has been growing, their subscriber numbers are up, it is now profitable, Max is still basically known as the home of HBO original programming and not so much where you can go to find 1,000-pound roommates. At the same time, revenues for the linear channels, the cable networks, have been dropping. In 2024, Warner Bros. Discovery reported $8.1 billion in earnings for their networks division. In 2021, that number was $10.4 billion. Because those linear earnings have been dropping with no real solution in sight because the market is just moving away from cable television, they've been a real drag on the Warner Bros. Discovery stock price because it is a pretty key part of the company. Warner Bros. Discovery stock has lost about half of its value since the acquisition a few years ago. It currently trades at about $10 a share, which is down from an all-time high of over $75 per share back in March of 2021 at the height of the company's Project Popcorn thing, where they were putting all of their movies out day and date on the streaming service. WB Discovery's credit rating was recently downgraded to junk status by S&P, who stated, quote, "We lowered our 2025 and 2026 forecasts due to continued challenges in WBD's linear television network segment, which we forecast will also offset growth at its studio and streaming segments." And shareholders have not been happy. I mean, David Zaslav has a reputation as a hack and slash executive. He's killed movies and TV shows and streaming services in order to save money or take the tax write down. But the company still has a lot of debt, reportedly around $37 or $38 billion. A lot of that debt happened during the merger between Warner Media and Discovery. Earlier this month, almost 60% of the company's shareholders voted to reject David Zaslav's pay package, valued at over $50 million for 2024. And while that vote does not determine whether he's going to receive it, it was obvious that something had to change. The lofty dreams of David Zaslav and his vertically integrated one-size-fits-all streaming service just could not support the complications of running a company that has to deal with a movie studio, a major streaming service, and declining linear cable channels all at the same time. So what happens now? Well, the short-term fortunes of WB Discovery have not improved, as its credit rating has been even further downgraded due to analyst skepticism of the long-term health of both of these new companies, especially the new networks entity. And the new linear network company is going to have a lot more on its plate because reportedly the majority of the billions of dollars of debt that's currently on the books is not going to go on the studio and streaming side. That is going to be shifted over to the network company. Now, supposedly, it is going to have about a 20% stake in the streaming and studio side that it can use to help to pay down that debt. And Warner Bros. Discovery said that they've also taken out a $17.5 billion short-term loan in order to pay back some creditors and also restructure a lot of the debt that they have. So it doesn't help their overall debt situation, but it does help to allay the fears of some of the people who have lent them money to try to make the shareholders happy. It's one of those financial moves that nobody really understands, but they say makes the company healthier. On the studio side, David Zaslav will now be focusing purely on movie, streaming, and television production, whether that means more moves like canceling Batgirl and Coyote vs. Acme, or more moves like greenlighting Mickey 17 and agreeing to Ryan Coogler's terms on Sinners, has yet to be seen. And if you ask me, the only absolute winner in this saga is David Zaslav, because he's gone from the head of Discovery, which was largely a company that was linear cable networks that were facing an uncertain future. And now through this merger and split, he is the head of a major Hollywood studio with a major streaming service that is now turning a profit, a studio that's had a very good year. And he has essentially divested himself of all of the headaches that he had as Discovery CEO of dealing with cable and linear television and what to do about that. This has cost a lot of people their jobs. This has cost a lot of creatives heartache with their projects being killed. But unsurprisingly, the winner of the corporate maneuvering is the CEO. On the network side, new company head Gunnar Wiedenfels inherits a lot of debt, a network of linear cable channels facing an uncertain future, and decreased value for some channels like TNT, which lost lucrative NBA rights under Zaslav's watch. How the company is going to pay down that tens of billions of dollars in debt while also facing a lot of the market headwinds that linear TV has right now remains to be seen, although this may just be an intermediate step heading toward the ultimate endgame. We do still live in a time of corporate mergers and acquisitions, and what this does is take Warner Brothers Discovery from one giant media company that would be very difficult to acquire to two smaller companies that would be much easier for someone to buy and cheaper as well. If Apple, for example, wants the Warner Brothers film studio, well, now they don't have to buy a whole bunch of cable networks in order to acquire it. And let's say that Comcast's new company, Versant, wants to increase its portfolio of cable channels. They now don't have to buy a film studio in order to acquire them. Wiedenfels himself has said that this is a very distinct possibility. On a call with investors, he said that both companies would be, quote, free and clear to be acquired from the day the split is finalized. There has been speculation from the very beginning that David Zaslav's goal as the head of Warner Brothers Discovery was to basically flip the company and sell it again. I think what he found out is that it is not sellable as a huge media conglomerate, but as two different companies, it could very much be sellable. So while this may look like a situation where the Warner Brothers studio is gaining independence on a level that they haven't seen in many, many decades, what this may actually be is the ending chapter of one story and the beginning chapter of another story in the long, long, long history of Warner Brothers mergers and acquisitions. But what do you think? What do you think this all spells for the future of Warner Brothers and media in general? Let me know down in the comments below. And before we go, I'm going to thank the sponsor for this video, Factor. Think about all the things that you love doing during the summer. My guess is that spending a lot of time indoors cooking isn't one of them. You want to maximize all that summer sunshine, and it just got a lot easier with Factor. They deliver chef-crafted meals right to your door that are ready to eat in just 2 minutes. And we're not talking about a limited menu here. Every week, Factor offers 45 options that fit all of your goals, including choices like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto, and more. Factor also provides great breakfast, on-the-go lunches, premium dinners, and guilt-free snacks and desserts. This week, Factor has one of my favorite meals on the menu, a barbecue chicken breast with sweet potatoes. It's a meal that I probably wouldn't make for myself at home, but it's super easy to enjoy with Factor. And just the other day, I grabbed one of their green juices to start my day off right, and I'm planning to order some blueberry pancakes for one of those mornings where I want to start with something a little more substantial. Get started at factormeals.com/Murrell50off and use code Murrell50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code Murrell50off at factormeals.com/Murrell50off for 50% off plus free shipping. Factormeals.com/Murrell50off. Thanks to Factor for sponsoring this video, and thank you for watching. Be sure to stay tuned right here for the latest in movie news, reviews, box office, and more. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.